Round 7 team list, they definitely have not disappointed, although pretty funny trio they've got on here. Obviously, KPP back. We'll find out which position he's in. We've got Bronson Sherry and Micah Sivo coming back as well. So let's get into the round 17 team list, kicking it off with the Doggies and the Sharkies on Friday night at 8 p.m. So 2 days, exactly 2 days, 48 hours from Origin all the way through until the first game here in round 17. So for the Doggies, we still see Crichton and we do see Jacob Preston on the reserve. So two pretty big names there. We do see Connor Tracy out, obviously, with his head knock, and Blake Taff returns to the fullback position. So if you are holding on to Preston, I personally am expecting him to come in and play. The thing here is, it's probably going to be off the bench to kick things off, to be honest, unless there's a couple of injuries through the week here. I do expect that Salmon and Kickow will start, and he will come off the bench just like he was doing when Kickow was back and then Salmon was starting. I imagine there wouldn't be any real reason to change that, even though he's an absolute superstar. But coming back from injury, I reckon they'll ease him in with about 50 minutes, 45 to 50 minutes, just like they did about a month ago there before he got injured and then started playing the big minutes. So that's probably the big news for the Doggies there. Turpin stays on the interchange, and I do expect, though, if Preston or Stephen Crichton were to come back, you probably see, or especially Preston, you definitely would see Turpin come off that bench, and that would be good news for Reed, given they won't have a specific backup hooker that could come in and take him, his spot, obviously, for a few minutes. Jarrell Skelton keeps his spot, and if Crichton was to return, Skelton would likely be out of this side, unless they decide to move on from Wilson. And in that case, I do think if Crichton was to play, you'd see Carraz move to that left wing again, and Wilson probably move back to the right. So, yeah, there's a few things to think about with the Doggy side. It's Burton, Sexton, Max King, and Hughes still there. Reed, obviously, still a really solid buy, obviously, even after his lower game last week. For the Sharkies there, we do see a very, very similar side for them. The big news here probably is that Britton Nikora comes into a bit more of a thought for us in fantasy and obviously Supercoach as well. Gotten a lot cheaper over the last bunch of weeks and then picked up that massive score. And with Hines next to him, I do think that's very, very helpful. We are seeing better scores for Ronaldo when Trindle plays as well, because he takes a bit of the ball away from Nico. And then the interchange stays basically the same as well. So no real outs for them apart from Braden Hamlin. Uele comes out, but he's obviously a lower minute guy anyway for this side. Atkinson still in the reserves, so if you do have him, then it's time to move on for sure. And then Teague Wilton is in the reserves and there's a chance of coming in and playing. And that would mean for Talakai, and he'd come back onto the bench most likely. So we've still got Kale Iro. Good stuff on that front. If you want to grab Hines this week, there's no issue with that, but he has a break even over 100 there and is likely, as I say, to lose some more cash. But we have seen him score over 100 before. All right. Warriors and the Broncos there. So for the Wars, we do see SJ's out for about 4 weeks is the approximate time, most likely 4 weeks, which means he'll be out for 3 to 4 games. They're either round 17, 18, and 20, or maybe 21 as well as an extra. But Tamani Martin comes into potential calculations. If you wanted someone for the next three games likely that could score pretty well, then Tamari is that guy. He's had 3 really good scores without SJ, so we'll clearly go through him in the buy, hold, risk, sell, whether that be tomorrow or that be on Thursday. One of those 2 days, obviously a little bit of a longer week for us, and there's no real rush on going through that. And we want to get all the information first from Origin and everything else before we make our decisions on our sides. But there's plenty of big decisions to make this week, especially in my team, and I'm sure there are for your teams as well. But Chances at the back, still a really solid option, but I think with the Wars faltering a little bit and struggling, they do need to sort things out. Mitch Barnett named, obviously, he's going to be 18th man, so doesn't affect him at all. Adam Finnell, Blake, Egan, Toru Harris, I think all at this stage are clear holds. Wade's so cheap now, so it's hard to move on from him. Sorry to those that do own. But Bunty Afoa and SJ are out for this one. For the Broncos there, we do see Jordan Ricky out after their last game. And we do see a little bit of a change. So Reece Walsh, Payne Haas, Carrigan, and Corey Oates all on the reserves there. Had to throw Corey Oates, the GOAT, in there. That's for sure. But they're all named on the reserves. There was talk of them just not being named at all. So they actually have been named in the reserves at least. And they'll make a decision on their whereabouts and if they will be playing. It's 2.5 days after Origin, so I think they'll test out how many minutes they end up playing and then make that decision from there. But just plan, I think with those two, Plan and Walsh anyway, plan for this stage that they won't play. They do have to travel to New Zealand. So in that case, we will get some information on this game and on these players Friday at 3 p.m. with a 24-hour update. So that will be before the first game of the round here, which you'll see is obviously the Dogs and the Sharkies on the Friday night game. So keep an eye out on that, and you can make all your decisions likely on Carrigan, on Haas, and Walsh in that update, because they'll only be able to take an 18th and a 19th man over, and that means that we'll have a decision on Walsh, Haas, and Carrigan most likely by that 3 p.m. time period. So if the team is named as so, we do see a back seven very, very similar to what we are normally seeing there. Cobbo, Mariner, Staggs, Jesse Arthur's returns in place of Corey Oates, and then Tristan Sadler at the back. For the forwards, Jensen will have a slightly increased role, you'd imagine, along with Xavier Willison. So if this is how it runs out, Xavier Willison will be a bigger minute, better scorer in round 17, in round 19, and potentially in round 20 as well. So he's an interesting player to look at for this week. Obviously, Kobe Hetherington as well is going to get an extended run in this side, and they have brought Muddy Tapau back in. Karapani's actually going to be their utility guy off the bench after he's been playing really, really well in the centres. Fletcher Baker and then Tyson Smoothie in there in the interchange. So yeah, expect some decent minutes from Hetherington, from Willison, from Walters, and definitely Piakura. I'm expecting 80 minutes out of him as well. So hopefully a good score for my Brendan Piakura, who's one of 4 players that has stuck in my team for the entire season. Who would have thunk it, hey? So yeah, that's the big news on both of those sides, and that will be the big one to follow, is that reserves for the Broncos, because we'll actually be able to learn it a little bit earlier than we will the other teams, and in time, basically, before we have to make captaincy choices and the rest. For the Knights, we do see Fletcher Sharp at the back. There is no clear sign of Armstrong. Obviously, in the 22 jersey, he is, and it looks like at this point he is not in favour, and they're going to give Fletcher Sharp his chance. So he's a very interesting player for myself to look at, given he's likely to get the next 3 weeks, 17, 18, 19, but then maybe a little bit of a liability for our sides come that time, and where trades are very scarce at the moment. He's someone that you definitely need to think about, along with Will Price. So 400k for Will, he has got the 6th spot. We don't see Jack Cogger in that spot anymore. He's in the 20 jersey. If Will Price plays anything decent against the team coming last, I do think he'll keep that spot, and with a nice average of 40 that he possesses in New South Wales Cup, does some a little bit of kicking, does the goal kicking as well. So I wonder if he'll take that goal kicking off Hastings. He's kicking him at 80% in New South Wales Cup. So if he was to get the goal kicking, I think that would be very helpful. But at this stage, we're unsure if that will be the case. Hopefully we do find out a little bit of information through the week. Sad news for myself with still being a Jaden Brayley owner. He's had the rest and he's still being named off the bench. So I doubt, it's probably good to know right now that rather than having the false hope, that he is going to start and then they change it late like they have the last few weeks. They've just gone out and named him off the bench. It is super frustrating for myself as an owner. I think that he's a very clear sell. It's just, do you have the trades? Do you have the ability to do that? And who would you trade him to? Are probably all the questions that you need to ask yourself at the moment with Jaden Brayley. So Crossland in there, I was looking at his stats even, he's been getting 50, 60 minutes, 66 minutes, and he still scores pretty poor. He's averaging 25 for a reason. There was a bunch of games where he had lower minutes when Brayley was playing big minutes, but outside of that, he's played some heavy minutes and hasn't really scored too well. So even as a hooker for this side that's likely to be there longer term and pretty cheap, there's a reason he is cheap. Frizzell, he's a lot cheaper as well, so someone to look at in that one. Dylan Lucas gets the start, so that's massive for any Dylan Lucas holders. Very sad for anyone who's a Kai Piss-Paul owner, but he has been named to play off the interchange bench. It's good to see him back. If you needed a number this week, that's good, and hopefully he can push his way back into that starting jersey, which he has eluded him in random weeks where he's been there for a lot, and then he's missed out for a couple. So unsure if he's going to get back to that. I do think he's a hold this week, but if you did sell a few weeks ago, you'd be pretty happy with this outcome that he is coming back off the bench. So there's a win for some. like myself, but not a win that Brayley still, even after a rest, can't get into this starting side, that's for sure. And Elliott, I think, just a clear hold at the moment. Like most people, if you've got through this stage and they don't have a bye for the next 4 rounds, then I feel like most of them are holds in that standpoint. From that standpoint, so the Eels, they've got Gutho, as I said, a little bit cheaper in this position here. Will Penasini will now play round 19 as the centre, so that's pretty helpful there. In this side, he got 70 odd last week, which is great. Mitch Moses is named to back up, which is very, very helpful. Their run's not too bad either, so have a little bit of a look at Eels players, especially Penasini there. Now that he's in a decent bracket of price, not too crazy after the score still, because he was going fairly low without Moses there. Brendan Hands keeps his spot, which is good. The big news out of the Eels, really, at this point, is the fact that Hopgood, maybe he's going to be seeing a specialist this week, and we'll find out if he's going to be having back surgery. So super sad to see that and hear that from him. But it does create some opportunities for some other players. And I was looking at Joe Fengawi as well. Just before this, he in that lock role, he's played some decent minutes, closer to 40, but still has a pretty average PPM. So the guys you might want to look at are Bryce Cartwright. I think his spot is fairly safe. And if he was to spend a little bit of time on the edge and then potentially in the middle as well, that could be pretty helpful for anyone who was looking to buy him. He's obviously just an edge only. Sean Lane gets back into the starting jersey, so good stuff from him. Expecting Junior Barlow there to switch with, who's it going to be on game day? Makatoa or Maddo? Maddo could end up in the starting spot. Who knows? They just he obviously keeps changing this every week. He's just a bench player that wears number 10. But yeah, that's the interesting situation with that one. And Maddo still off the bench in this game here. So we'll see if that actually changes on game day. If you still own, the injury to Hopgood is good news for Madison owners and Cartwright owners, in my opinion. Obviously, Sean Lane as well, but he's very low ownership at the moment with Kelmer being out as well. There's plenty of space in that team for some good game time and some good points. For the Storm, we do see Nick Meaney is not actually dropped. He has a calf injury that he picked up in the game during the game last weekend, so that's frustrating for owners of Meaney. Jack Howarth comes in and takes his place after his really good game last week. Grant Anderson keeps the other centre jersey there with Warbrick and Coates. Coates been named. Harry Grant's been named to follow up and back up from Origin. Crazy to see, actually, there's only 2 guys. Obviously, with Munster not being fit, there's 2 guys from the Storm team only that are playing Origin. So I expect this game to be a really good one for guys like Jerome Hughes, and he's likely to be my captain if I wasn't to be grabbing Nico Hines, which I think next week will be the play for Nico. Anyway, we'll work that one out as it comes. Yeah, Howarth's an interesting one. If you think that he could potentially, when Meaney comes back, could potentially keep that spot, but obviously missing round 19, probably more of like a Supercoach cash out play, in my opinion. That's where I would be with that one. Harry Grant, thankfully, has been named to back up. Hopefully it's sort of 40 minutes for him, and he can get 60 odd here for the Storm, and I do expect him to actually start on the bench like he did in round 13. 13? 16. Yeah, what was it? When did he play? Yeah, 16. What am I talking about? 14. Backing up from 13. Anyway, we got there. Expect him to be on the bench like he was in that one, with Garlic to start. Nelson, if you want to look at him, obviously cheap middle. Same with Welch, both playing off the bench at the moment. Ellie Katoa, Blore. Hold on to them. Ellie's still a potential buy if you want. Thankfully, we've still got Wishart, which is good. For the Raiders, we do see Albert Hopper-Whitey come in for Nick Kotrick. There's no reason why. I can't remember if something happened to him during the game, but just says Nick Kotrick's out, taken place by Albert Hopper-Whitey. So anyone's thoughts of potentially grabbing him, that just goes out the window after he's 60-odd. He did really well on that front. And Jordan Martin is going to get his debut off the bench. Yeah, which is going to be cool. So congrats to Jordan. Hopefully he does come out and play. He's overtaken a few of these guys in reserves, like Wolford played last week. You've had Schiller, still can't get a gig. You've got Simi Sasangi, who has played a bunch of games, and Emre Gula has been dropped as well. So, yeah, plenty going on that front. Papali'i and Tarpany in the start. Whitehead doing good things. Young, fairly, a bit cheaper than he once was. Keep hold of Weeks. Timoko, surprisingly, has been named after, they thought he cooked his shoulder, which, he hasn't, apparently. He's fine. So, that's that for the Raiders. Dragons and Dolphins. Sadly for myself, Trey Fuller has not been named. So we obviously do have to see what happens in Origin. If we get some news out of Dolphins camp that Hammer's going to be rested, we will get some information hopefully at 2 p.m. on Saturday. So that will be before the second game of the round that will play at 3 p.m. So you'll know, obviously, information before this game. You'll know information on the Broncos players at 2 p.m. And then you'll obviously know information on the Dolphins with Fuller as well. So a little bit frustrating for myself, being an owner of Trey Fuller there, that he hasn't been named, but there's still a chance that he does play. And if he doesn't, I will be selling. I'll have to. And we got the news that Jaden Campbell is actually going to be out for 2 weeks. He'll miss round 17. He'll miss round 18, hoping to return in round 19. So very close to a 4-week return to play from game day injury until the week that he plays. So it's a fracture in his hand, so the mid part of the hand there. And it's a bit of an awkward one, obviously, but I need him for round 19. So if he was out for round 19 as well, if it was a 3-week injury confirmed, I would be selling this week. But in the case that he will be back in 19, I'm likely going to have to hold him, because if I'm selling Fuller, I'll be in a tougher spot in the wing fullback slot. So yeah, a few things to think about coming into this week with Fuller and players like that. So we'll work that out as we go over the next couple of days for sure. So that's the Fuller situation. Hammer has been named there. Asako, still a potential guy you can buy. Same with Farnworth after a low week for him and a high week for Asako there. Lemuelu is still someone you could look at, but surprisingly he's been named after what happened to him in the game. Marshall King I wouldn't be looking at the moment. Ewan Aiken and Plath really still solid. I'd probably look at Plath more than Aiken just at the price. And that's that for the Dragons. Again, not really anyone you look to buy. It's a very settled side at the moment, which is obviously good for them. No outs this week. Bostock the only one out, with Tessie New returning for the Dolphins. And DeBellin, if you hold on, hopefully you can get some decent minutes, but they've got Luciano Leilua on the bench this week. Malcolm Silla, Blake Laurie, and Couchman. So all guys that should be able to get some minutes. So it'll be hard to see DeBellin playing big minutes when you've got like Eisen, who's likely to play a few more. Jacob Little, interesting hooker option if you haven't got one yet. He's doing good things, and he'll be really looking to push his stocks as a guy that can hopefully lock down a spot, and he wants to keep the spot for next year as well, with Cook coming back to the Dragons. So yeah, pretty full on there. You got Jack Bird on the reserves looking to make his return this week as well. So you'd see probably Max Fainai there. It will exit the side if that was the case. And then the Panthers versus the Cowboys there at 4 p.m. on Sunday. We do see the Panthers naming all of their stars. And the big news here is Brad Schneider has been dropped, with Jack Cole returning from injury. So they're really, really happy with how Jack Cole's performing, especially with Jerome Luai. They've been doing good things. So that's massive news for anyone who held on to him. My head-to-head team does, and I'm sure a lot of you out there have him as well. So that's massive there. Brian Tongo, all guys in there as good players. Tongo needs to sort himself out. Obviously here, getting so cheap, and as a potential one to look at over the next bunch of weeks. Leota, as I said, another cheaper guy you might want to look at, who should be there for the majority of the year. Fisher Harris, mid-tier, but I don't know if it's the time to get someone like him. Isaiah Yo's been named. They play Sunday, so likely that he does come back and play for the Panthers there, with Nathan Cleary still not on the radar. Maybe next week is kind of the thoughts with Cleary right now. So yeah, that's that. Nothing really else to say. Sorensen, if you held this far, hold on. Continue holding on. Could buy Isaiah Yo. Bench is nothing to look at really. And then for the Cows, you do see Jeremiah Nanai actually hasn't been named at all. So he's out, definitely. And then we've got Cotter, Robson, Dearden, Talangi, Holmes, all on the reserves bench. And again, most of them will likely back up. They're sitting in 8th spot, and they'll want to continue their winning ways after having a good little run of games, that's for sure. So that'll be their plan. If everything works out well for them, they don't play crazy minutes. So I obviously have Cotter in my team, and I'll have to keep an eye out on this one. It's probably a good thing it is the second last game of the week. That should give them a good chance of backing up. But Cotter did back up last time and played massive minutes. Do they rest him this time instead of resting Robson? That's probably the big question mark, and something I'll need to look at personally. And then we can make a decision from there. Holmes, if you got him, most people probably more in Supercoach. If you got Robson, hopefully he does back up for you. But yeah, hopefully we're just going to find out more information post-Origin and how many minutes he plays. Maybe Robson doesn't play 80 this week, with Connor Watson to play some time at 9. So that could be cool as well. Jackson Purdue in the centres with Va'alea, which will be cool for them if they get the spot. Harrison Edwards named at 9 again. Lukey in that spot. Finafuyaki, if you did hold on, I suggested maybe it was a good idea to hold on and he will get the 80 minutes, most likely again this week, which is good. And then McIntyre in there, he should play some decent minutes as well. Chester, Granville, McKaylee, and Griffin Neem on the bench. So the Griffin Neem starting experiment is over for now. Last game of the week, Roosters up against the Tigers. So, and maybe if Fuller's getting traded out for me, it may be Teddy time. That will be pretty fun, that's for sure, up against Tigers. But Satili Tupanua has been named at centre with Pauga out, which is pretty crazy. Manu's there, Dom Young's there, Kiri and Walker. Hargraves is going to start with Terrell May. So they've actually got Lindsay Collins coming off the bench after Origin. Makes complete sense. This is the first time we've seen a backup team for the Roosters, given they missed round 14 with a bye. Anyway, so this is the first time we've seen that. Nafahu White won't start with Connor Watson likely to play lower minutes. He'll go straight into the 13 jersey. Brandon Smith will start. And with a 4-forward bench, they're likely to see Watson move into 9 when Smith gets a rest. And maybe White come into 13. Something like that, most likely at this point. But yeah, Satili in the centres is great to see. That'll be fun watching. Hopefully for... Which side's he going to be on? Manu will be on Dewey's side, so that'll be pretty cool. He'll be on Brent Naden, so he probably reckons he can cover Brent Naden. But Angus Crichton has been named to start. There was a lot of whispers that he potentially wasn't going to be playing, or a few of the Origin guys weren't to be playing. But Collins is on the bench and Crichton is in the start, so we'll see how that one plays out. Obviously, it's later in the weekend, and yeah, if they pick up any niggles or stuff, there's obviously no chance they'll play. But yeah, Nafahu White and his experiment has definitely failed, sadly, and I do think if you need someone to sell this week at an okay price, that Nafahu White is that guy you can sell. For the Tigers, we see some potential guys back, with Clemmer already being named in the interchange. John Bateman and Justin Olam being named in the reserves there is the big news of this one. So Clemmer, actually, where's... Oh, I didn't even realise. Twali's still out. Oh, shizen. I didn't even realise that. Sorry, guys. For owners of him, definitely. He's not even in the reserves. Okay, that's rough. He's probably a sell then. Hey, if that's the case, and then you've got guys coming back, like if Bateman to come in and play some middle or play edge for Ruben Porter, like they've got Matamua, Seyfarth, these types of guys there. So yeah, okay, rough. So Twali out, probably a sell at this point, just on first glance. It's another week out. That's rough as. So yeah, you want him for 16 and obviously 19, and haven't even got him for 16 and 17. So it's tough. Dewey keeps his spot in the centres, which is good. Luke Leilili, he keeps his spot on the wing for now. And I think if Olam was to play, then Naden would go to the wing likely, unless they were happy with how Luke went, which I'm sure they were in that win. But Galvin and Caesar, happy to have Locke, obviously. This will be a fun game for him. Api Coruscant, if you want to jump onto him, but obviously it won't be as easy a game. Against the Roosters, I'm not expecting the world. I'm expecting a lot of missed tackles, that's for sure. And Sammy Weller, this will be a great test for him as to how he can go against the big dog. So that is team list for around 17, guys. There was a lot going on in that one. Hopefully I caught everything. Let me know if I didn't. There could be a late change from Jennings into the starting side if he comes in from the reserves there for sure. But yeah, it's a pretty fun little team list. It's going to be a lot to work out in our sides. Obviously, enjoy Origin. We'll get something out tomorrow, but nothing too crazy before Origin, and we'll get everything out following that, that's for sure. So thanks for being here, guys, and we'll catch you in that next video.